we have roll call, please?
Essig,
Here.
Ward, here, Knopfinger,
Here.
Butler, Fisher,
Here.
McNutt,
Here.
Seaman.
Here. All right, everybody stand for the pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Visitors and correspondence. Do you want to start with the public?
Yes.
All right, do we have any visitors or correspondence?
Is this right here?
Yep, that's
Okay.
Identify yourself.
Yeah, I'm Chris Armstrong, 825 Westminster Drive, Washington, Illinois. 45-year resident, 8-year or 6-year board member. It would have been dog years if I was still on there, so you guys are. But no, I just appreciate letting me speak quickly. I guess I want to start with just commending you guys. The last 6 to 9 months, I can only imagine, have been incredibly difficult. So appreciate your service and the fine job you all did navigating this thing so far. And then also the communication, this came out on Friday, so just commend you. And it looks like, I mean, there's good framework, but obviously there's some finer details you guys are gonna be sorting through. And I guess I think you guys all know me. I've been lucky enough or unfortunate enough to have been a part of seeing this thing since late January, as we kind of work from Asia into Europe, South America, and here. So I've seen a lot of good and a lot of bad, and take things pretty seriously, which I think you guys all do too. And I guess maybe I just want to say, I guess there's no perfect plan, but I think everybody's got their own unique circumstances. And me personally, I do what I do, not for me, but for my family. And that family consists of somebody with a pretty severe autoimmune disease. So, which this isn't an inconvenience, this could be a death sentence if this comes to my house. So, as we look at figuring out ways to accommodate, and not everybody's like me, but I think there's other voice out there, and they may not be as vocal as I or some of the other aspects of the community, but not a lot, but it's a big enough percentage, and its severity is enough that having some flexibility, whether it's remote or whatever, depending on how things go, I think is a pretty key consideration. So I'm sure you guys are doing your due diligence, but I just urge you to keep some of that in mind as we kind of work this and get good voice or whatever. But I know you got to move probably pretty quick here over the next few weeks. So, but anyway, that's just what I'd like to share. So anyway, appreciate all the hard work, and I'm sure you got your challenges still yet to come. So
That is something that we're definitely working on, so. Thank you.
Awesome. No,
Thank
thank
you,
you,
Chris.
thank you.
Right, thanks, Chris. Good to see you. Okay,
The two correspondents, 4.2, 4.3, are both thank you cards from Mrs. Eisenberg and Mr. Little, who both retired. So those are just for you to see, the cards. The 4.3 came in this afternoon from Nicole Montgomery. I'm going to give you the executive summary because we are posting it for public view. If anybody wants to read it, it's all there. It's a long document. She talks about very similar concerns to what we just heard about how quickly this can spread, the dangers of this, and some concerns about only having one option. As we will talk about as we get into planning for next year, we do have a remote option that will be available. We are just kind of working some things out right now. One of the things that we were getting hit with from the community was a large number of questions about what the schedule might look like if we go in person next year. So we were trying to respond to that by giving them the opportunity to see what the in-person schedule will be. The next communication, which hopefully will go out near the end of this week, we'll talk a little bit about some of the safety and security measures that we're going to put in place. All of this is really fluid. That's the best way to put it. We have had guidance change on us multiple times. It had changed twice on us on Thursday alone. So we are trying to respond in a way that's well thought out, but also flexible enough to address changes as guidance changes. when we get to the planning discussion, we'll talk a little bit about the remote option so that people know that it is there. Our guidance this week probably also include a survey to parents just to talk about, to get some feedback and some information that we need to know from the community to better plan for what we are going to do next year. We just wanted to push information out about what things might look like before we started asking a lot of questions. That way there was a little bit of background and hopefully parents can better respond just based on what we are saying. So that's kind of where we're at with all of that right now.
So we'll address quite a few of her concerns.
Yes.
Probably a little later.
Yes.
Okay, anything else? All right, if not, on to 5 reports. The financial report, Dr. Sanders.
All right. Good evening, everyone. It's great to see you here in person. So thank you. Thank you for your service and your commitment to working through these difficult times. I can't say enough about the quality of board members that we have, and I know there's gonna be some tough decisions that are gonna be made. But all right, let's get to the reports. You have your expense report and revenue report. I should grab the right remote here. This is going to be tough to see from where you're at, but this is the expense report, and, excuse me, yes, it is the expense report. Here is the budgeted dollars. And keep in mind that we have amended the budget, and so I'm going to go into just a little bit more detail on the expense report because this is indicative of the June 30th fiscal year end. And so by fund, we have not overspent in any of the funds, okay? And I know that we amended the budget. The education fund, we basically added some additional dollars to line items for the tuition of out-of-district students. But we only increased the overall budget by $80,000 in the education fund. Well, in a almost $16 million budget, that's a rather insignificant number. And so we finished out the year coming in under. We would have been under even without that $80,000. Again, we, in the operation and maintenance fund, we increased that budget line by $100,000. Now, the reason for that was to close out the project. And so, as I take a look at the numbers here in the expense report for that, we came in at $3.1 million of actual expenses. That's at 80% of what was budgeted. So that's good. That means we're finishing with a surplus in that account. All the rest of them, the transportation got really close. Bond and interest is always going to be at close to 100% expended. But as you take a look, capital improvements, that's a wash, and the working cash, those are fund transfers. But the transportation fund, we were really close. We're at 98.8%. And then the IMRF and Social Security came in at 94.7% expended. So I'm really pleased with this. A week from today, our auditors will be on site, and so they'll start getting into the books a little bit more. They'll be here for about a week. But I'm really pleased to see where we finished up. And so that is the expense report. The revenue report, not much has changed with that as we closed out the year. And so this is by the different funds, and then this is just by the different categories. So like general levy, we typically receive just over 98% of our general levy. That's to be expected. But as you go through, we received 100% of our general state aid. That's a significant number at $3 million. And so it is great to have those revenues that came in. So nothing shaking in the revenue report. It's basically what we planned. And then the last report is our investment and insurance report. I want to comment here, the Central Illinois Invest from the last time that we had this report was higher. Keep in mind that we transferred money, the designated funds project, $1.5 million out of that designated fund balance was used for the project. And so I waited until June to make that transaction so we could hold on to the interest just as much as we could. And so we are now showing a balance of 1.8 million in that Central Illinois Invest account. And so that's why this number here has dropped, because that was a planned expense. Now, for really, really good news, here's our insurance report. We did not have an insurance committee meeting, so this is brand new for Bonnie. So you can take a look at where we're at on our expenditures. This is a $225,000 break-even line. And so for the first 5 months, it's been very favorable as far as our expense. The other nice piece of information that the board needs to know, and I had a conversation with Laura Reen today, went over this information so that she, our co-chair, was aware of it. We are sitting at over $1.3 million in our health trust account. And I know, Bonnie, over the course of this year, that dipped down into the high 700,000s. I am very satisfied that we're now back up well over $1 million as we roll into the next fiscal year. And that helped drive our decisions from that insurance committee as to our premiums for this next year. We're going to assume some more risk to try to keep the cost lower for the district, but with that, we've got a real healthy balance to assume that risk. And so from the financial side, we'll get more information. I'm looking forward to consultants getting in here and doing the audit. They're a great firm, and next month I should have a little bit more information. But just keep in mind, as we do the audit, the board will get the summary packet in October for that. So, any questions about the financial report? Okay, thank you.
Nothing else on the financial report? We'll move on to discussion and informational items. So 6.1, resignation of Katie Miller, English teacher. Oh, can't see them. Okay, I'm sorry. 5.2, 2020 summer school report. Mr. Stevens?
You have it attached. You can just kind of see, and what we usually do with the summer school report is give you a feel for the enrollment. Remember, we did the whole thing online this year. Due to our current pandemic situation, we felt that was safest for students. So that was our approach. You can see the total cost and total deposit. So we're still real close to even on all of that, which is important for us. We try to break even, try not to really go much beyond that.
So there were a few drops. Are those, I'm just curious, 'cause since it was all online, is that a normal number of drops, or was it a little higher maybe because of online?
We had a higher number of kids take it, considerably higher number of kids who dropped. I do think that in terms of the remedial math and English, I think that being online had an impact.
It's harder.
I'm so sorry.
No, it's the math. So it's more difficult.
I believe so, yeah, because there was a lot of self-motivation there where they didn't have someone there to kind of help guide them day to day.
Thank you.
Stevens, when they had the online, was it a certain time during the day they had to get on, or could they get on at any time?
They had to get on within the first half an hour to do their attendance, and then they did have the teachers available.
Okay.
Some of the teachers chose to do Google Meets, and they did live Google Meets, not all. But yeah.
Well, I know that 7 a.m. class is pretty difficult sometimes for kids to get up to go to in the summer. Were they that early again?
Yeah,
Even online?
7:30 to 10 and 10:30 to noon, and students could choose which one they wanted.
Okay, great.
So-
All right, thank you.
All right, anything else on summer school? Board committee reports. I think only the facilities that, does anyone have any, want to tell us what we did in facilities?
It's been so long ago, I've forgotten.
I think we just kind of reviewed.
We reviewed things, we talked about the bell,
Right.
that type of thing.
construction closeout. We
Right.
talked about where we're at on the
A
project.
little bit on the parking lot, I think.
Yep, where we're going with that. We talked about the bell. I think we've kind of come to a consensus on where we're going to
Right.
put it. So we're just kind of working through things to figure out logistically how to get all that done.
Right, and figure out a base maybe.
Yep.
We talked about that, so.
Yep.
And we did approach some of the differences that would have to be if we opened up the school and when we opened up the school with the hand sanitizers and the cleaning and that. We did a few facilities on that too.
Yeah.
so.
Because I mean, that's going to touch everything, you know.
Right.
Anything else? Questions about facilities?
I do have a document. Mr. Mehardy forwarded me an email today on the bell. And so I've got some drawings and some renderings here as far as that. So I'll hand those out to the Facilities Committee so that you can start taking a look at that. And I've got an extra copy for any of the other board members that would like to take a look at that as well. So, okay.
Great, anything else? Right, now, if we have to do that, now we're on to discussion. The resignation of Katie Miller, English teacher.
Yes, you have a copy of that right there. She currently lives in another school district and was offered a position by the school district where she lives, and we thought it was the best move for her and her family, and we wish her the best of luck.
All right, do we have somebody?
Working on
Wanna
that now.
replace
It's open. We've had, I've seen at least 2 applicants, so we'll be able to begin interviews probably soon.
Good. All right, anything on that? All right, 6.2 Miller Hall and Triggs.
I'm pretty sure that's just the renewal letter, is it not?
It is.
No increase.
No increase. Just raise up.
That's nice, huh?
Did I say that nice?
We better sign that right now.
Exactly. Let's see if I can. Any comments on that? All right, 6.3, planning for school year 2020-2021.
Okay, bear with
Big
me.
one.
I'm gonna talk for a few minutes here while I'm masked up, so if I pass out, somebody may need to come over and pick me up. I think I'll be all right. Symptom screening. We talked about a number of things over the course of this week, and the big push for this week, just so you have, and it talked to this, I alluded to this at the beginning. Last week, we wanted to get out just kind of a feel for what the schedule would look like. This week, we're really concentrating on talking about what our safety procedures and protocols are going to be, so we can get that out as well, because a lot of the decisions we need to make then hinge on some information that we're able to get from parents as we move forward. You know, once they know what the schedule's going to look like and what the processes are going to be, we feel like they'll be in a better position to answer some of the questions that we have. For example, will you be sending your student to school? It's a version of that question. Another question that we have is, if you ride a bus, will you be, or if your student is a bus rider, will they be taking the bus to school? Because we need to know the answer to that question. And then, would you be interested in food service? And we kind of lay out a general of that, because we're talking about a grab-and-go lunch, breakfast combo, which would be done at the end of each of the periods and would be basically meant for the next day. So the group that ends at 11 o'clock, they get their lunch and breakfast to go. Now, granted, if it's at 11 o'clock, I'm probably going to eat my lunch, I get that. But they'll also have their breakfast for the next day. The group that then is out at 3 o'clock would also get a breakfast lunch combo. So the plan being the lunch would be for the following day, so they have something to eat before class. But they also have breakfast prior to that, because they won't be here to receive it. So that's kind of our concept with it, and we just need to have a general idea of how much we are going to need to prepare and what that grab and go, because then we'll have to organize it. So we'll talk a little bit about what our safety procedures and protocols are, and then we'll talk a little bit about some of the other things that are going on. I'm gonna start with just general symptom screening. We are currently working on a Google quiz that will be able to help students and parents self-report, which is very important in all of this. Our students are high school aged. they know if they're not feeling well. If they have a sore throat, if they have a runny nose, if they have a cough, those are things that they are going to have to be able to report to us. You know, we're going to ask that they take their temperature at home, but we will also do some screening here as they come into the doors or onto the buses, because we have to symptom screen in order to get them in the door and on the buses. Okay, so we're working on procedures for all of that. The self-report's going to be a big part of it to try to make it efficient. We want to utilize their personal equipment that they bring every day, their cell phone, so that they can walk in and we'll have checkers available and they can just kind of show, yep, did it this date, here's all the information you need, thank you, you're good, come on in. Okay, and then we'll also do some spot checking of temperatures because we have some infrared thermometers that you don't have to touch. So we can screen from a little bit of a distance, okay? And we'll figure out if it's like every third, every fourth kid that walks in the door, we'll do a quick spot check. Now, by dividing the population in half, we're looking at a maximum of, if our enrollment numbers are right, 725 kids in the morning, 725 in the afternoon, or a variation of that, because remember, we're going to divide this up based on bus routes. That's very important because what that does is it provides us the opportunity to not utilize all our buses twice or 4 times per day. A pickup, a drop-off, another pickup, and another drop-off. Some of our bus routes take close to an hour to travel, so that would not be functional in between. They couldn't go do a 1-hour bus drop route and then do another 1-hour bus route and get the kids to school on time. So by breaking that up, we're doing our normal routes one time, so we're not paying extra transportation costs, okay? Which is important, but it also gives us an opportunity to be able to go take care of the kids that need those bus rides to school. Now, once we break it up, it could be a little off. You might have 600 in one group and 800 in another. It could, it could slide a little bit depending. But our goal would be to break our class sizes down. That's the ultimate purpose for what we are doing, to decrease the number of students in class. If we have an average of about 20 kids, which I think we're around 20 to 22 in a course right now, that's our general average, and we're able to break that down. If we can get it to around 14 to 15, we can do what we've done over there, 6-foot spacing of the desks and chairs, which falls right in line with CDC guidelines. The other expectation will be masks. They have to have a mask to get in. That's the ISB statement. And right now, we're going to hardline that. You have to wear your mask if you're in the building. And that's what we know at this point. And so some of that may flex. We don't know what guidance is going to be as we move forward, but I do think we need to do everything we can to protect our students, our faculty, and ultimately our community as a whole. Because we do know that it can be a very dangerous disease, and we don't want our students to become a source of infection for the rest of the population. We are being asked to provide 2 versions of whatever we do, a face-to-face version and an online version. Our online version will look a lot like last year's online version. As a matter of fact, it'll be basically the same plan. We might have a couple tweaks in grading because they will be receiving standard grades A through F. Unlike last year, their grade can go down if they decide to disengage. All right, and so that's very important to understand because I think over time we're going to see some of that, and we need to be able to address those students as we can. But that's one of the things that'll be in place. Another thing is we'll have to look at attendance and make sure that we have a good way to handle that. But we did like our attendance sheet from last year, and I think we'll know if somebody's not following through on their attendance and doing what they're being asked to do because we'll see it in their grades. They won't be getting their assignments. So there will be some accountability on the online version. The in-face version, and let's go back to safety procedures and protocols. Other things that we'll have in place. We talked about potential of routes of travel, and we may have to do some things to that extent, but With half the population of the students here at any given time, we believe right now that the best and most efficient way, and this is also tied to CDC guidance, because I think one of the things they want you to do is minimize the time they're in contact in the hallway. If I start yelling, let me know. I'm just trying to talk through a mask. Okay? Minimize their time in the hallway, so we need to be efficient. We talked about the potential of one-way halls, but then we realized if we do that, we're putting the kids in the hall for a longer period of time. Because if you have to go to a class that's right next door to your other, and the hall's going the other way, now you have to go around the whole horseshoe just to go to the neighbor's house. And that's not what we want to necessarily do. We want to get them in and out of the halls and into their rooms as quickly as possible. So we're talking about how that'll have to be more direct, more one like almost single file through the halls, with the kids moving on the right side of the hall. As long as they're moving on the right side of the hall, whichever way they're going, it'll work just like a road. But just like a road, if you cross over the center line, you can get in a head-on collision. So we need to keep them on their side of the road, okay? And so that's the plan for how we're going to move them. Once they get to the classroom, we will have disinfectant bottles, and we will have paper towels available. Each student, just like you would do if you were going to the gym now to work out, which a lot of people are, and this is the general procedure, should spray down their area and their seat, okay? That way it's disinfected before each use. And we know that it's disinfected because the student who's sitting there is the one that did the disinfecting. We talked about doing it on the way out, but then realized if you do that, it's a little more difficult to ensure that things are getting clean. It'll get cleaned if you're the one sitting there. That's the thought behind it. Outside, some of our courses will need to go outside. PE, for example, it's going to be very difficult to run or to exercise in these masks. So ISB guidance right now says if you can keep them socially distant outside, this is ISB and IHSA, as long as they're beyond the 6 feet, and as long as they're in groups no larger than 50, they can remove their mask, okay? So we're going to try to do as much outside PE as possible. There won't be any changing, so no locker room use, no showering. So whatever we do has to keep that in mind as well, all right? Restrooms are going to be cleaned more frequently because we won't have the total population. We'll probably lock down some of our extra restrooms because we won't need as many, and that'll also help our cleaning crew focus in on the areas that they need, so we can make sure that those restrooms are getting cleaned more frequently. Now, CDC guidance for what needs to happen on frequently touched surfaces and those types of items are daily. Needs to be cleaned once daily. We're going to do it more than that because we want to ensure the safety of our kids and our faculty. But I did want to point out that this is the federal CDC guidance, the Illinois Department of Public Health all say once daily. We pulled down that documentation and looked at it today. So we will be cleaning above and beyond the guidance so that we're providing a more clean environment. The other thing that I can talk about real quickly, because some of the concerns are tied to ventilation, HVAC. One thing that everybody needs to understand, all our HVAC is relatively new, which means it's following current ADA guidelines, which means every time you feel the air coming in, like in this space, it's pumping in 15% fresh air. So a few years ago, we found a little bit of mold in the basement and did an air quality control or an air quality test in the basement. And what we found was, and Dr. Sander can correct me if I'm wrong, but the air in the basement was 400 times better than the air outside. Okay, and that had to do with the fact that it was filtered, that it was air conditioned, and that it was pumping in fresh air. Okay, so in a lot of respects, we're producing better air, especially this time of year when things are so stagnant, so muggy outside. So those are important things. I'm trying to make sure that I am hitting everything. So PPE for staff and screening symptoms. Staff as well as students will have to be able to self-report their symptoms. We'll use the same procedure for our staff, for our faculty, where they are filling it up and showing us what their temperature is. But remember, temperature is only one of many symptoms here, and that was reiterated multiple times by the Illinois Department of Public Health, Tazewell County, Peoria County. They're all saying the same thing. Don't rely solely on temperature, because it's kind of a combination of all the symptoms, or a combination of symptoms that could result in a positive COVID-19 case. One question was masks for staff. We are currently working to try to provide a mask for each staff member. All right, so we'll provide at least one, and then we'll talk through needs beyond that. But I think right now, most staff members probably have multiple masks. I know I do, because I think you can only wear one so many days in a row, even if you are cleaning it, and you just need to switch and then clean it really good. With medical reasons not to wear masks, we're going to have to do some follow-up, because I think there are going to be some requests for us not to have masks in the building, but that will all be guided by attorneys and by the health departments. Okay, how we handle that will be strictly based on guidance. And one of the questions I think that comes up frequently is just tied to that. How are you going to respond to a student that has a medical issue and cannot wear a mask? Great question. We're trying to get to the bottom of that now. So there are going to be some things that we still have to flesh out as we move forward. Okay, because they haven't been absolutely direct on what they want us to do in those cases yet. Like, do we automatically move that student to remote learning, or do we have to provide some other opportunity for them here in the building? So that's going to be, those are going to be things that come up over time. Social distancing, we talked about the classrooms, we talked about the passing periods. We're going to do our best on the buses to minimize the amount of time that they're on the bus, minimize number of students on the bus, try to get them where they're going quickly. We're going to screen, they need to wear masks on the bus, all of those things that we need to put in place. One of the things that we've seen in the CDC guidance is if you are not in contact for somebody for an extended period of time, everything that we are putting in place is very effective to kind of ward off this virus. And so shortening the amount of time that people are in closer proximity is vital, but also making sure that they're wearing masks. Okay, talked about cleaning, student deaths, ventilation. So I keep running through things. I just want to make sure I hit everything, everybody. So I'm looking through notes from today's meeting that we had. One of the questions that has been brought to our attention a couple of times is what happens if a student or a staff member is tested and comes back with a positive for COVID-19. The best answer we can give right now is we will work directly with the Tazewell County Health Department on how to respond to these cases. Because sometimes that's a nexus that is outside of the school. It may be a kid who had an interaction with somebody. They're only going to be here for 3 hours a day. So in a week, there's a lot of time where they are not here. With that being the case, there's also a good chance that they are running into people outside of the school, and that's how they contracted it. And the health department is doing a lot of that, following cases and making sure that they know where things are happening. So we have to work closely with them. And they're pretty specific on what we can and cannot say, but all those guidelines will be followed. We have a plan for it. We do know a couple things. The one thing that we do know is if somebody comes back with a positive diagnosis, that it's a 14-day quarantine minimum. Okay? We also know that before they come back, they have to be clear of symptoms for 72 hours. Those are the two things that we know right now based on their guidance. All right? And so just understand there are a lot of variables and a lot of different factors that play into all of this, and we are going to be pretty tight. We're going to be real tight on what we are and aren't doing, and we're going to be working closely with the Tazewell County Health Department. Okay. General notes. Some of the other things that we need to do now, we need to get some information back from parents so that we can start to figure out how many kids we think we'll have in the building. A lot of the schools that are doing the surveys are finding 10 to 15% of their population is not willing to put their kids back in the school district. If that's the case, 10 to 15% of 1,400 students, 10% would be 140 less. 15% would be almost 200 less. So that being the, well, it'd be a little over 200, but that being the case, then suddenly our numbers go from 700 in the hallways to 600 in the hallways. Not to mention that we do believe, because we're going to be talking with parents about not sending kids who are not feeling well, that have exhibited any symptoms, any signs of issues, don't send them to school. We think we'll probably see fewer kids at school on a daily basis because more parents are going to keep them home if they're not feeling well. So that will also decrease the number of kids in the school at any given time. So what I'm telling you is we're really going to be minimizing the number of kids that are in contact with each other, but we're still trying to provide them a face-to-face experience wherever possible. Okay? We have talked with staff about what presentation will look like in classes. We're talking about simultaneous instruction, meaning what they are doing in the classroom will probably also be recorded to some degree and posted so that students can see it. We have looked at some technology that will allow teachers to utilize their smartboard. So what the students at home would see is the smartboard, and it's an earpiece and a microphone so that they're basically hearing the teacher, which will limit a lot of the background noise and help kind of keep things a little more in line with the educational experience. So those are kind of the thoughts on where we're at this point. We are continuing to work through this with the faculty. We're now starting to get a lot of questions that we're going to have to address as we move forward. One of the goals for our, and you saw the plan diagram that we put out, the level 1, the level 2s, and the level 3 committees. One of the goals for the level 1 is to kind of put together a plan of attack. So after we get our information back, what are we going to focus in on next? Because we have to do this in chunks. We cannot do it all at once in a scattershot approach. It's just too much. So we have to focus in on what we can know we can control for right now, and we also, everybody has to realize this situation changes and will change, and at times it will not change daily, it will change hourly. And so there are going to be a lot of quick adjustments to this as we move into it further. Okay, I hit a lot of stuff. So board, let's talk. What do you need to know? What would you like to hear? What would you like for us to look into?
Well, I have a few questions, and they're not, have to be answered today, but a couple of them. I've been asked if the food that the grab and goes, would they be paid for, like, by the state like they were for the summertime? And I said I didn't know.
If you don't mind, I'll hit you as you ask the questions where I can. What we know, we don't know the answer to that just yet because we haven't heard. That's a federal lunch program,
Okay.
and that's how that was handled. So we're waiting to hear guidance from the state and feds to find out if we'll be approaching that again. I know that was floated out there to the feds. I don't know what they are going to say to it. The grab and go, we'll figure out a way, either way though. We do have the student accounts, and we'll figure out a way that parents can still refill the account if there's a pay scenario, so that students can go up, either give a number, their name, type it in, and it'd just be a blank, a standard charge to the account. This won't be the normal meals. It'll be a set with the federal guidelines to it, so it's going to have all the nutrition requirements that the Fed set up. Meaning, you can't go in and do the à la carte stuff. You won't be able to go over and get a burger or something. It will be, here it is. This is the menu.
And I know your administration team has been working diligently on this, and there's just so many questions, and I'm not gonna go through all these, I can probably just send you an email. The other one was on mask requirements. Are we gonna have a certain mask that all students, or will they have their own mask, or are we gonna provide masks?
We're going to ask the students to supply their
Okay.
masks.
Okay, and then has there been any, and I know you've been looking at all different options, has there been any thought of any classes outside besides PE? Like,
Oh, yeah.
say
yeah.
biology might go outside, or so that the
And we
kids
were-
can not wear their mask? If it's a nice day, I mean, I don't want them out there in, 20 below winter, or it's raining, but is
Right.
that an option? Some parents feel a little more comfortable if they're outside. Obviously, you're not inside breathing here. And then,
And so in answer to that, and like I said, I'll hit them as I can.
yes,
We're going to have some spaces available, and we'll just have to figure out which spaces are available. But if you think about the number of classes we run at any given time, it's over 100. We don't have 100 spaces available outside. So if there's a way for a class to get outside periodically, we'll run kind of a sign up and let them go out. They can get a mask break. The other nice thing about our program, just so everybody knows, because it's 3 hours of in-face, we're minimizing the amount of time that students have to sit in a mask. And we feel that's valuable too, because after the 3 hours, they're going to be able to leave, and at that point, they're no longer in the mask. So we're not asking them to go through a 7-period day in a mask.
is that kind of how you guys came up with that idea, or working with other districts, or?
It just kind of fits for us.
Okay.
That's the best way to put it. As we talked through all of the options, this option that we came to, we just kept coming back to, boy, this is a benefit, this is a benefit, this works well for us. And that's where we came up with it.
Well, and again, you guys have been doing a tremendous job trying to put all this together, because it does change, and then you're following the CDC rules and requirements, and, I think you guys are doing everything we're asking you to do, and we appreciate you coming forward with the information.
Well, I know there are a lot of questions out there, and we have a lot of questions.
Oh, I
So
know.
we're going to continue to try to get information out in an organized manner in digestible chunks. Let me just put it that way. But one thing that we've already started is there is a portion of the website where you can go to see all of this information as it shows up. So it'll be there. We'll push it out through our normal streams of communication, but then if you want to go back and see, so what does the schedule look like again, you can go to that tab on the website, or, let me see, I haven't seen it for a while, but you can go back to the website and it'll be there. It'll be kind of the storehouse for all of us. What are the safety protocols? Well, once we put that document, we're going to put out some FAQs and some things like that as we move forward. The big ticket item right now is kind of getting the main structure of the plan together, and then we'll really be working on what the flesh looks like as we go.
Well, and the teachers are going to have to,
Yes.
they are going to be in their masks for 7 hours a day. They're not going to get to go home half days. They're going to have that extra, so we've got to take that into consideration, and I'm sure you have. So, I appreciate the time and effort. I know you've been working on it all the time, and your team, and
That's kind of the nice thing about the 8 to 11 and noon to 3. We'll give them a little bit of a break in the middle of the day where they can get out and get the mask off for a little while. So,
thank you.
Any other questions or comments? There'll be no lockers, right?
no lockers, good point.
Kids will have to
Yep.
bring,
Yep, they're gonna have to bring their equipment.
and water fountains.
We're still working on what that might look like. Right now, we have a number of bottle refill stations, and those will definitely be up and running. I think we'll really encourage kids, bring a refillable bottle, so that if you need water, you can just walk up and refill and walk away from the station, because that doesn't have the...
Those are safe.
Yeah.
you think?
You kind of touched on this, kind of implied in what you said, but the only question I had gotten outside of some positive feedback was that siblings would be in the same session, which if you're doing it by address, that would inherently happen.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, as long as they're in the same bus route, it shouldn't be a problem. Now, I can't guarantee that if you have like step siblings
Of
or
course,
something
right.
that live across town from each other.
Okay, but,
You know-
but generally it would be.
Yes,
Yeah, I thought that was one nice thing with the bus.
that kind of keeps the families together.
Right,
and,
right.
yeah. So like I said, there are just these, as we started getting into this, we're like, oh, that's a benefit we didn't think of, you know, and that was one we discussed, but it wasn't one we were planning for, but we were like, you know what, that'll be nice, because if I have 3 kids that are all in the high school, they're all gonna be the same session, whatever that session is.
Thank you.
And I think Dr. Freeman shared with everybody, anybody that has questions or anything from the community, let them know, because, you know, sometimes those questions are things they haven't thought of, and I think we found some of those have been pretty helpful.
Yes, and I do appreciate the questions that you send me as a board, because then I can relay that with responses. I know I have a set of questions sitting in my inbox right now that I'm going to send out tomorrow responses to, because I will tell you, there's only one of me, and my day disappears super fast right now. I looked up at one point today, and it was 11:30. I looked up again, and it was 3:45. And that's pretty much how the days go right now. So I'm going to get to them. It just, trying to get it all out, it can be a bit of a challenge. So.
Well, actually, I was impressed by how quickly you did answer our questions, because I was concerned about how we measure the entry-level skills, because our last part of the semester, the spring, we didn't know for sure how conscientious parents and students were with just the technological approach. We gave a pass-fail grade, so there wasn't a record of what had happened during that time. And we had to do what we did, but and where are they in coming into this class? What's how broad is the span of accomplishing what we had hoped students would be accomplishing? And you did respond that that was going to be taken care of by the various department chairs, and it worked out in those departments about what their expectations were, how they would catch up on voice in those skills as they come back. So there's another one, but hopefully they'll take a lot of the pressure off of you and put it in the departments, so that would help too.
And please understand, we don't have perfect solutions here. This is the most difficult problem that we have faced in education in well over 100 years. We're charting new territory daily, so we know that not every solution we get is perfect, because, you know, if you look at what we were able to provide last year, it was 6.5 hours of instruction on a 7-period day. We can't. So this solution is a good solution, but nobody's going to make any bones about it being a perfect solution. We think we can do some great things with our kids. We are going to be able to move them forward educationally, continue them down the progression of education. But, you know, in a perfect world, we wouldn't be dealing with this. But we don't live in a perfect world. And I do think that in the end, what our teachers and what our staff and what our team is going to be able to accomplish will be good for kids. But we know we are working in less than great circumstances here. But we're going to make the best of it, and we're going to do some great things with kids.
You know, and this isn't a question so much, but it's a very local kind of response. I mean, some suburbs in Chicago have already decided they're going to go 100% online. Los Angeles today said they're going 100% online. But given our remoteness, relative remoteness, the localness of our community, I feel like this will work. You know, but like you said, it'll have to change. But I think we can all feel good that the administration is doing a great job. And when the community members ask us, we can support the administrators and And I think that way when people start saying, well, why is one town doing this and why are you doing that? We can say because it works for our town. And I just think that's really important going forward.
You know, and one of the side discussions we had was tied to our town, like the elementary schools. So we know that there are lags in when schools are starting and when they're ending. We know that we have districts that are doing some major construction and they're going to have to start much later. The nice thing about what we've provided here is with half the students in the morning and half in the afternoon, we do have high school students available if they need to do childcare for their families. You know, is it perfect? Do we have them there all day? No. But at least half a day they'll be available, or somebody will be available. So we're kind of looking at that as something that's valuable also to help parents who need to get back to work and struggle with finding ways to take care of their children. So.
Anything else? Think it's a good plan for now, and
Yeah.
we'll keep everybody updated, right?
We will. We'll stay in touch. Right now, the plan is in August to kind of have all the pieces together, so the board can kind of look at it and respond. You know, you're going to be seeing a lot of information, so keep an eye on your email, because as we move it out, it comes to you too. So it's like drinking from a fire hose, but it's okay. We'll get it done.
Did we discuss, just think that the school will start one day later than originally?
Yes, and we'll talk about that in
Is
the
that done?
calendar,
Okay.
in the action items.
Okay.
So,
If nothing else, then we'll move on to 6.4, graduation 2020.
okay, so the plan for graduation is Saturday at 1 o'clock at 5 Points. Now, we're going to have our 2 speakers come in a little bit earlier. We had offered it out to at least 4 students. In the past, we've had more speakers than 2. We had a number of them turn it down. We have 2 that are interested. We're going with 2 speakers. You know, you don't want to strong arm a kid into something they're not really comfortable doing. So they'll speak. They'll be in at 12:30. We'll pre-record. And then the plan is we're bringing them in groups of, I want to say, 20 students and their families. I think it was up to 6. Yep. And so we're going to kind of tractor them through. That's the best way I can put it. We'll have all our social distancing markings. They'll be able to come in the front door. We're going to look at 5 Points as 2 different spaces. The hallway space and then the auditorium space. So we're going to keep it below 50 in each of those spaces. So we'll move families through the auditorium. They'll get the opportunity to see their son or daughter's name called, for them to cross the stage to receive a diploma. Right now we're talking about board members, and there will be board members present. I have 3 board members that are interested right now. If you want to be a part of it, just let me know and we'll send you your time frame that you need to be there. I was going to say that I don't think we're going to have to wear, that we could get away with not masking, but I don't know how we're going to be able to do that, guys. We're going to have to wear masks. I'm sorry, we're inside, and that's the reality of it. You know, you want to be able to smile and look a kid in the eye and say, hey, congratulations. I also feel like the least I can do is give them a handshake on the way out the door, but I think what I can give them is an air high five. So they've got that going. But it will be a nice ceremony for them because we'll be able to get them through. We're going to put all of this together. We have a professional videographer who will videotape all of it, and then we'll splice it together so it looks like a graduation ceremony in the final product. We also have Rich Burke taking their picture. By the way, videographer is covered by the student council. They paid for that. So that's a gift to all the seniors. Rich Burke is taking pictures, and
Will there be a way for the students to not have a mask during that picture?
yes,
Can we possibly?
yes, we'll let them take their mask off for
I
their
didn't know
picture.
if we did that
Absolutely.
inside.
Actually, we talked
Or
about
could they cross the stage without a mask if everyone else has one on?
we talked about letting them do
Okay.
that too.
I think that would be nice.
It is, doggone it, it's an automotive company. So I do need to apologize to the automotive company because I didn't memorize all of that. Lisa, you know the name of
Yeah,
it?
Martin Automotive.
Martin Automotive. Thank you, Martin Automotive. They are paying for the senior pictures. So, pictures, video, free to the seniors. I mean, I think that's kind of a nice thing. They had kind of rough into their year. So, that's nice. There's also going to be a photo opportunity out in front of the building afterwards where parents can take a picture. We have some letters up that will be a nice photo op for mom and dad and the family. Yes, it will look different. I think it'll probably take, I think we might be able to get it done in about 2 hours. I think we had over 250 people that were planning on attending. So, students, so that's a good number of students, 340 in the graduating class, and we already sent off 7 kids towards the military. So, 250 is a good number for kids that still want to participate in this. But we're proud to see that. That's good. So please, 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 if you are interested, let me know, and you can let me know even now. So right now it's Bonnie and Jennifer and Brian. So, and I know a couple of you aren't available, so that's the same. But if something comes up and you do, let me know as soon as possible so I can get it scheduled. All right. Other than that, we'll put a schedule out so that the 3 of you know when. And we talked about how to stagger it out so that we have either one, and with 3 board members, what we might want to do is just one for a third, one for a third, one for a third.
Makes sense.
Okay?
And then in the communication to the parents, you'll let them know that they all have to wear masks.
Yeah, it already been sent out. Yep, masks are required. I think we mentioned that we would let the kids cross the stage without a mask so that if they're there to get a picture of them while they cross, even though it is 2020, it'd be very evident what year they graduated. So,
They'll remember it.
Let's hope.
Yeah.
Let's hope it's only 2020.
Right, that's right. Okay, if there are any other questions? Okay, so we're all ready to go.
Any other? I only have one other, because Brian and I are both on the, we call it that? No.
The level one.
Right, the task force, there was some kind of confusion with the Meetings Act.
Yep.
So temporarily, I will be stepping down from curriculum, and Brad Butler will be filling in for me, probably for a few months, you think?
Yeah.
He's not here, but I did talk to him, and he's willing to do that. So, just for the record, that's what it'll be.
So if we have any curriculum committee meetings in that time,
Right.
Brad will be your third curriculum committee
Yep.
member.
So, all right, any others? Okay, on to consent agenda. The consent agenda is the regular board meeting minutes of June 8th, 2020, executive session meeting minutes, June 8th, 2020, facilities committee meeting minutes, June 17th, 2020. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
So
Oh, and,
moved.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, the bills.
And the bills, I'm sorry, 7.2 bills.
So moved.
Second,
And motion and second. Any comments? All right, could I have roll call?
Seaman,
Yes.
Essing,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Knopfinger,
Yes.
Fisher,
yes.
McNutt.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. On to 8 action items. 8.1 personnel. Let's see, 8.11 certified employment, approve employment of Margaret Bagley, school social worker.
This is a township position. Remember, we had a very late social work resignation, so we were excited that we ended up with 2 applicants. Annette Gresham interviewed Ms. Bagley and was very excited about her as a candidate and is bringing her forward for employment.
Which school would she be assigned to? I remember.
I'd have to talk to Annette about that just to make sure that I'm right. I don't want to speak out of turn. Because we also had a psychologist resign. I don't think we'll get that position filled. So I'm not sure if she's flexing the social workers at all. So I know that the position that resigned was District 50, but some personnel have been shifted over to District 50. So I'm thinking 51, but don't hold me to that.
Those are hard to find, a psychologist.
Yes, it's very tough.
So do I have a motion to approve the employment of Margaret Bagley for school social worker?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any other comments? All right. If not, can I have roll call, please?
Fisher,
Yes.
McNabb,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Essing,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Knopfinger,
Yes.
All right, motion passes. 8.12, non-certified employment. Approve employment of, is it Michael Bates?
And Bax.
Back as a food service worker?
You have the recommendation there. Position is open, and we need to fill, and
All right.
I think you'll do a great job.
All right. So do I have a motion to approve the employment of Michael Bax for food social worker for the 2020-2021 school year at the rate presented?
so moved.
Second.
All right, motion and second. Any other comments? All right, roll call, please.
Knopfinger,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
McNabb,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Essing,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
All right, can I put all these together?
382.
All right, 8.13, extracurricular employment. 8.1.3A, approve the employment of Jessica Stricker as assistant girls basketball coach. 8.13B, approve employment of Lisa Fuller as assistant volleyball coach. And 8.1.3C, approve employment of Bailey Little as assistant volleyball coach. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and second. Any comments?
All three are new teachers at the school and all have good experience in the areas that they're going into, so I believe they'll do a great job working with our kids.
All right, great. Anything else? Can I have roll call, please?
Essing,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Knopfinger,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
McNabb,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
All right, motion passes. 8.1.4, leave of absence. 8.1.4A, approve the leave of absence of Kimberly Barth. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Any comments on that?
You can see the request,
All right.
so it's definitely earned.
Roll call, please.
Seaman,
Yes.
Essing,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Knopfinger,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
McNabb,
Yes.
Motion passes. 8.2, approve amended 2020-2021 school calendar.
Okay. I'm going to pop that up on the screen if you could, Dr. Sander, and I will talk to it real quickly. Here are the big ticket changes. Remember, we were going to approve this calendar last month, but some things occurred. One of the things that occurred is we have a new state holiday. On November 3rd, Election Day, we have a mandated school holiday. So we had to adjust the calendar to address the new holiday. We also pulled off all late starts at this point because if we're working under the proposed schedule that we gave out, there would not be time to do a late start. Instead, those yellow squares in there are, we were given the opportunity to utilize 5 remote and blended learning planning days. Okay? They were given to us at the end of last year, and they carried them into this calendar. So we have 4 of them there. We may need another one. We're kind of holding that one in our pocket. That's It's not a day that the kids would be present, it's a day where we can plan for what we need based on these changes. And as you can see, we kind of front-loaded this to give us a week or two with what we're doing, and then to come back and talk about, is this working, what do we need to do to address it? And then another couple weeks, and then we'll talk about it again, and then another few weeks, and we'll talk about it again. We want to kind of feather those in. As you can see, the 17th and 18th are now 2 Teachers Institute days. Remember, in the original calendar you approved, the 17th was a Teacher Institute day, the 18th was the first day with students. We have now moved the students' first day back to the 20th. That gives us 2 Institute days and a blended learning planning day, so that we can make sure we have everything in place that we need. There's going to be a decent amount of training that needs to be done and room planning that has to occur, and they have to have time to kind of get things physically set up within their classrooms. We know we're going to need those 3 days for that. So that pushes that back a little bit. The change on the back end was our original calendar. The last emergency day was June 3rd. Okay? Now it's June 4th. It just pushed everything in one day because of the new holiday. All right? As you can see, everything else is pretty much the same way it was in the initial calendar. All the holidays are in red. Parent-teacher conferences are in the darker gray. And as you can see, we have October 22nd in the evening, and then daytime conferences on October 23rd. You can see that Christmas break starts, or winter break, starts on December 23rd, and students come back on the 7th. There is a Teachers Institute Day on January 6th. Thanksgiving weekend is the same. Our spring break is basically March 29th through April 2nd, which ties to spring holiday. And that 5th is the day after the spring holiday, so that after Easter, so that people can travel back from visiting relatives. That's kind of a traditional approach that we've used in the past. So being able to correlate spring break to Easter break gave us a day back in the calendar, so that was kind of nice. So those are kind of the highlights of that calendar. Are there any questions?
So the yellow remote and blended learning days, those students don't show up, but they're
Count
not
as
going
student
to count,
attendance.
they count as a student learning day effectively in terms of us meeting our,
On the state calendar, yes.
okay, thanks.
You're welcome.
So would they be just checking in on their computer, because they're not coming here, correct? But they'll
No,
still have
it's
work.
basically a provided Teachers Institute thing.
So it's a
That
day
the-
off.
Still a job for the
Yeah.
students then too.
Yeah, because it's so that the teachers can do what they need to do to
Okay.
plan for the needs, because of how unique this environment is. And there's a chance that we'll be in and out of remote. You know, once we get going, we know if some cases show up in the region, or even in the town, or even, unfortunately, could happen at the school. We could have the Tazewell County Public Health Department come in and tell us, you need to close for a while and do some deep cleaning, and let things kind of settle out before we bring you back. So with that being the case, those remote and blended learning planning days are there to help if we have to go from one to the other. Because our plan includes both a blended learning plan and a remote learning plan. And just so you know, with the blended learning plan, face-to-face instruction, that's 3 hours. It's required a 5-hour day. So there's going to be 30 minutes tied to each class that's tied to work. That gives us the full 5 hours of instruction. Okay, so it's going to look like a modified block if you know old school education jargon. It's kind of like a block schedule. You know, there's the I do, we do, you do. The you do is the part where we send them with like homework. That's what normally it is, or research, or things that they need to do on their own outside of the actual in face-to-face classroom. So we're meeting all the expectations of the state calendar through all of this. that gives us our 176 days.
So, in the unlikely event that we came back full-time, the only change probably to this calendar would be the late start Monday.
Yep, we'd have to add those back in.
Okay. But otherwise, we anticipate, okay.
And that's not a very difficult proposition to add
Right.
in late start Mondays. It's more of a communications issue because we're already getting the full legal 5 hours on our late start Mondays. So it's already a legal day. That's not an issue.
All right, any other comments?
Yeah, so there's just a lot of information, and you've spoken to this, to communicate out to parents. And we're gonna be probably sending out some later this week. Would it be wise to get this out like maybe tomorrow or something?
Yes, it's going to go out with our board brief.
Okay, and there'll be like specific explanation of those yellow days? 'Cause-
Yeah,
I think they're already at the bottom.
it's down at the bottom in the key. It says remote and blended learning planning days. You know what, I can add in there very easily, non-student attendance.
I
Or
think-
students not in attendance, so that they know that.
Okay, very good.
I have one other question regarding the calendar. Are we still doing the freshman kickoff? Because that's usually pretty beneficial for all the kids. And is that still the 14th then, on the Friday?
We are, I think we're dividing it up into 2 groups, so.
Oh, sorry. We're working on the details, but we're going to divide them into 2 groups. So we're going to do an 8 to 11 group and a 12 to 3 group. So if you're a student who would be 8 to 11, you're going to run that 8 to 11 schedule and kind of have your first taste of it, and then we'll move it through as well. So we think that will be good for them.
Because I know in the past, that's been very successful for the
Yeah,
freshmen to come in and
yeah.
just get acquainted with the school. And
Yeah, we didn't want to see it go.
Yeah.
So I'm meeting with Lisa England and Brittany Stage each week, and we're working on modifying the plan and what we feel is the most important, make sure we get our kids through.
Great, thank you.
Anything else? All right, do I have a motion to approve the amended school calendar for the 2020-2021 school year as recommended?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. There's no other comments. Could I have roll call, please?
McNutt,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Essing,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Knopfinger.
Yes.
Fisher.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. 8.3, approved job description for the multi-tiered systems of support coordinator.
This is we brought it to you last month as an information item, so it's an updated job description for this position.
Do I have a motion to approve the job description for the multi-tiered systems of support coordinator?
I move.
Have a second?
Second.
Any other comments? All right, roll call, please.
Fisher,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Essing,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Knopfinger.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. 8.5, approve proposed changes for WCHS Athletic Handbook 2020-2021.
This is 8.4, the general.
Oh, yeah. Approve proposed handbook changes for the 2020-2021 school year.
Yes. And this one actually came out of the discipline committee
Yes.
that meets. So these are just our annual updates to the handbook. Just so that everybody's aware, we may have to add some things to student handbooks, specifically masks.
So probably next month, and we need that soon. And that might be something that we push out to the parents too.
There will be.
Okay.
Actually, we started pushing that out in the last document because it said things you need to be prepared for, wearing masks, symptom checking, screening on the way in. It kind of hit.
But if there's any
Just on a
specific
high level,
guidelines for the
yes.
mask, you know.
We'll push that out as a, yes.
Okay, all right. So do I have a motion to approve the proposed handbook changes for
So-
2020?
So moved.
All right. Second?
Second.
Any other comments?
I have one. At the last 2 meetings, I had mentioned that the Panther Pride program, we are reducing it from 3 to 2. And this
Is it still in there, Ron?
It's still in there.
Still.
Okay. How about
Amend the-
motion with that specific change?
Well, and so before we make that a motion, it's going to be, the first exam waiver will be to remove the GPA requirement.
Yep.
And the second exam waiver, the administration was going to recommend a GPA. Did you guys decide on one?
Or, we got buried in the other stuff.
No, I get it, but if you guys want to do 3.5 or 3.0 or what? Or will we just?
We still need the GPN for the second waiver. We'll get that to you in August. You know what, how about this? I missed that, I apologize. Can we just table this to August?
Sure.
Yeah, because the only question I have is, do we need to get the handbook out to students sooner than that, or no?
Not really. Most of it's already in there. We change it online. We don't send it to them as a hard copy. We don't print it out anymore. So as long as the online copy is ready to go prior to, we should be okay.
It makes sense, exactly.
Karen?
It's in registration, which starts July 31st, that they view the handbook. And so Holly and I were just saying they'll have to take it out of.
Can we just do this then?
Can we say as recommended by the staff, or do we have to approve the actual?
They wouldn't be the handbook though, if they're saying they've read the handbook.
No, if we make a motion to say,
We can make a
those
motion.
changes, and then the GPA as recommended by
Administration.
administration.
Okay, we could do that. We could do that, so
So we can get it done.
yeah, that'll work. Okay, so we'll pull the GPA from the first exam waiver, and then we'll send you a recommendation on the second, or we'll let you know what the recommendation
But
is.
we
on the
can
second.
approve the,
Yeah,
does that
yeah,
seem reasonable?
if that's okay with everybody, based on admin recommendation for GPA on the second exam waiver.
Uh-huh. And, sorry, but just a thought, if you have to hand that out July 31st and there's going to be the mask provision in there, do you anticipate other changes to it, or do you want to add the mask provision now with the same kind of admin recommendation?
Well,
Will that go under dress code, basically?
it will go under dress code.
I'd say it's outside of, it's not our rules and regulations. This is, it's going to be
Based on
come down from
'Cause
Bisbee and.
I think my concern would be that we approve it now, there are 2 court cases out there that might change all of this next week. So it's kind of hard to, that's why we kind of held off on putting anything in for this month, because as things are just fluid.
And we can always add it, because you're going to have to add consequences as well, potentially.
Yes.
But
Okay,
I'm
that's
assuming,
fine.
does our dress code say something to the effect of, no, obviously you can't
Face
wear anything
coverings,
with
yes.
obscenities and
Yeah.
distracting
Oh,
things,
yes.
that kind of stuff is what
Yeah,
I was thinking.
that'll
So
all
you don't have
fit
a
in.
mask that says
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, that'll all fit in there, because anything they wear can't have vulgar language on it,
Right.
just the
Right,
general
that's kind of what I was
discussion.
thinking. Okay. So that's
So-
already basically covered.
Yeah, and what we'll probably have to do is just push out an amendment to the handbook for students when they get here. Hey, guys, updated, here are the new regs, which could change even after they get here. So that's what's so difficult about all of this, is trying to get it right. So,
So we need a motion to approve the handbook changes for the 2021 school year with the addition of, do you have the wording on
with the
it?
amendments as discussed in the board meeting, and we'll make sure we get
Okay.
those written out and handled. So that would be the removal of the 3.0 in the first waiver, and then we'll put in the second waiver.
It's
EPA
recommended
requirement.
by
Based on
administration.
the admin rec.
Yep.
Okay. All right, do I have a motion to approve?
I move what Kyle just said.
All right. There's a second to that. Oh, sorry, a motion is second. Any other comments or questions?
Sorry, guys.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay, roll call, please.
Knopfinger,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
McNabb,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Essing,
Yes.
Ward. Yes.
All right, motion passes. 8.5, approve proposed changes to the WCHS athletic handbook for 2020-2021.
Okay, and that was also an information item last month. Sorry, I'm digging through it real quick.
I think it's page 7.
Yeah, it was just one thing, bottom of page 7. Which is, let me get to page 7. If a student refuses to take a test when randomly selected or leaves school grounds after or while being escorted to the testing site, the student shall be considered to receive a positive.
And that also goes through policy.
It did. It went through policy.
All right, so do I have a motion to approve the proposed change for the WCHS athletic handbook for 2020-2021?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any other comments? All right, roll call?
Ward,
Yes.
Knopfinger,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yeah.
McNutt,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Essing.
Yes. All right, motion passes. 8.6, approve consolidated district plan.
I almost put this in consent agenda because it's just an annual approval that we need to do. It's tied to Title I funding. It's part of our federal report.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the consolidated district plan as recommended?
I move.
Second. All right, motion second. Any other comments or questions on that? If not, roll call, please.
Essing,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Knopfinger.
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
All right, motion passes. 8.7, approve waiving of the second reading of policy 5-125.
And this, just so everybody is aware, is the electronic communications policy that we've been talking about for staff.
All right, so do I have a motion to approve the waiving of the second reading of policy 5-1.25?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Motion second. Roll call, please.
McNutt,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Essing,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Knopfinger,
Yes.
Fisher.
Yes.
Okay, they just spared everybody the actual reading of that policy, like out loud.
A lot of
So,
fun.
that was nice.
So, all right, 8.8, approve policy 5-1.25.
So moved.
Second. Motion second. Any other comments about that one? If not, could I have roll call?
Knopfinger,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Essing,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Motion passes. 8.9, approve intergovernmental agreement between ICC and Washington Community High School.
I think this is tied to transitional math between ICC and, we have to do this annually. It's an MOU that says our transitional math program will allow our students to go straight into the math without taking a remedial course.
Isn't this one that is already in place? And
This is-
Do it every year.
Yeah, this is just the agreement with ICC that they'll accept it.
All right, do I have a motion to approve the intergovernmental agreement between ICC and Washington Community High School?
So moved.
Second.
Motion second. Any other comments about that? All right, now could I have roll call, please?
Fisher,
Yes.
McNutt,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Essing,
Yes.
Ward,
Yes.
Knopfinger.
Yes.
For 9.9.9 ILCS, okay, C21, C1.
All right, 9, executive session. Do I have a motion to go to executive session for 9.1.9, 1.5 ILCS 122, C21, and 9.25 ILCS 122, C1? So moved.
Second.
For anybody that wants to know, that is review of executive session minutes and talking about the evaluation of an employee, specific employees.
And there will be action items.
Yes.
afterwards. Okay, so roll call.
Knopfinger,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
McNabb,
Yes.
Seaman,
Yes.
Essing,
Yes.
and Ward.
Yes.
So we are going to ask everyone to leave. So we're going to have executive session in here. We do not have official business.
Okay.